Yeah.
I've got that. I'm very happy to.
I got that order. But, thank you though.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
yeah,
I thought about you, I was driving up, Hunting Creek, like, County, and I got a fence all up and down.
Here we are live whenever you want to start.
it's tough.
Wait until 7
Whatever you
o'clock.
say.
That's fine. You're good to go whenever.
Thank you.
You're saying that shape and your places.
The thing about this, I got to talk to the chief, is you come this way from, that's the left, turns from National Wood into.
It is roasting at 77.
It's,
Yeah, thank you. sir.
it's,
Hmm.
and there, I got to talk to Chris about this. As you go down the Hunting Creek Hill.
Did you find out if we can,
That whole
or
thing.
did you find out if we can give money
That's
to
your,
We
that has to
can.
be maintained.
But I'm not sure that,
that we should?
Whatever. what
well,
those
only
pay.
16%.
Jack Brown.
People are,
Let's see.
Take
The other thing is, Carter did a nice analysis, but it's not accurate.
good point. I didn't catch that.
Did I, take your seat or?
There are a whole bunch of them, like.
Don't think so.
Who don't.
Think we're all in the right seat?
Amen.
Can't pay their dues.
I don't need to be on camera.
So it may be 16%.
For the law.
It could skew in either direction. I hear
Hey,
you,
neighbor.
but you know.
Hey, how are you?
It's the only other time. Because they're not big companies. Yeah, it is. It is.
She's in black. I don't know your names. Dr. Jacob.
No.
That's Valerie the board. Nick. He came, spoke against the stop sign. Big.
I don't see them as that.
I mean-
You see them as totally give them attention. They're big.
Come on, you got to do.
Sure, sure.
So it doesn't seem active.
Yeah, well, green light. So what uniform is that? What uniform? What school? Is that Assumption or
Collegiate.
what is it?
Collegiate.
Little Collegiate? Good school.
Good to have you here. Okay, folks, it's 7 o'clock. I think we can come to order. This is the regular monthly meeting of the City Council of the City of Prospect, Kentucky, and today is February 22nd, 2022. The first order of business on our agenda tonight is to consider approving the minutes from the last council meeting, which was January 10th. Those draft minutes were distributed with the packets. Are there any suggested corrections or additions?
Yes, John, can you hear me okay? This is Greg.
Can hear you fine.
Okay, thank you. Nothing really too major. Some of this is very minor, actually, but so under the mayor's report, where you have COVID-19 has begun to affect City Hall staffing. I just think maybe something that further explains that, because the way it's worded, it sounds like it just began. But so I think I don't doubt that's exactly what was said, but I think what the intention was there, that the Omicron part of it had begun to affect the City Hall staffing. So maybe just a slight explanation of that, just for the future. And then under the second to last dot point, again, this is not a big deal, but Sutherland is singular. In several places throughout the minutes, it says Sutherlands. And so technically it is Sutherland singular. So those aren't that important, but I wanted to mention those. Under the Ethics Commission report from John Embry, it does appropriately state that Nick Nicholson is being proposed, but there was action taken that I think should be a part of the minutes. So specifically, if I remember correctly, Councilman Barnsley moved to approve this, it was municipal order 1-2022. And I'm pretty sure Councilwoman Odell seconded the motion. And then the council unanimously approved Nick Nicholson as the alternate member for the Ethics Commission. So I just thought that was the actual action taken, so that should be a part of the minutes.
It's in here. It's in the new business.
Oh, big pardon. Frank tells me that it is in there under new business. I'm so sorry. Under the, there's a slight misspelling. Let's see, on page 3 at the top, it says hat instead of that. So where it says and hat volunteer, so it should be
See, I
that.
thought we were getting renamed, that the volunteers in the library were now going to wear hats.
Yeah. So just a typo there. And again, Sutherland is plural in the next section under police report. Also under the police report, house watches were up year over year. I guess what we mean to say there is they are up from last year. I think that's
Yes.
what we meant. And then under new business, let's see. I want to make sure, since Frank just told me that that was in here.
It's the first item.
We didn't take any action on that,
On what?
on the municipal order 1-2022. So shouldn't we say that no action was taken? I don't know, it's just, that's what I would think is, we discussed it.
Correct.
Yeah, we
The
didn't.
the third one.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so the ordinance 613-2022, we didn't take any action on that. So
That's quite a list. It seems to me that we better put those minutes off until next time and go back and rewrite them.
Let me speak to that last item.
okay,
It just says there was a first reading. Doesn't indicate any action taken other than a first reading.
okay, very good.
But that's my sense. I think we should just withdraw that draft and rewrite it and present it at the next meeting.
We can do that.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Hey, John, do you mind updating the ARPA acronym as well, since you're going to redo them anyways?
What's
I'm
that,
sorry, say that
Sarah?
again.
Do you mind updating the ARPA acronym as well? It's written as APRA and then written differently, spelled out American Rescue Act Plan versus American Rescue Plan Act. Just since if you're going to redo them anyways.
Well, sure.
Yep.
Sounds like the worst set of minutes we've ever presented. Okay, let's move on into the next part of the meeting, and it is the mayor's update. Because tonight's meeting is going to be very long, I'm going to keep this very short. In addition to the usual reports, we'll be discussing tonight the personnel policy manual. We'll be discussing the possible uses of ARPA money. And at the end of this meeting, we will have an executive session to discuss both ongoing and potential litigation. So given all of that, I'd like to move into hearing from the candidates for judge and for county clerk, county court clerk, who've come tonight to introduce themselves. Let me say, first of all, that we will make the same opportunity available to any other candidate who wants to address our council. Now, the people I was expecting tonight, I don't know if they're there. Neville Blakemore, who's a candidate for county court clerk, is he here?
Yes.
Yes,
Neville, would you like to take up to 3 minutes to introduce yourself to us? Just go to the microphone over at the podium.
We give
Here,
him
you
the
can use this
microphone.
one. Here.
Take your mask off.
Sorry, these same executive session.
Does that one not work?
Actually, I don't know.
Do I need to get on video at all or just?
I don't know what the topic is. Okay, I misunderstood.
Hello, thank you. My name is Neville Blakemore. Appreciate you all making time here. I'm a candidate for county clerk. I'll lay out a really brief vision here. I want to modernize the office and I want to protect the right to vote. When I say modernize, a lot of people do know that the clerk registers cars, manages the deed rooms and all that kind of things. It's a pretty large office. It's about 320 employees, about 25 million in revenue. If you think about all the extraordinary things you can do on your cell phone, scheduling appointments, FaceTime, text messages, all that kind of stuff, none of those are options with the clerk now. It doesn't have free Wi-Fi in its remote locations, and you still have to go in and take a ticket and sort of wait, as opposed to if you had a texting service, you could drive up in your car, get in line by texting, and then being called from your car and come in. So there's a lot of convenience and a lot of opportunities to make the office more efficient and effective for everybody. You're also chair of the Board of Elections, and that's a big focus. Rise to the polls, voter registration drives, attending naturalization ceremonies, that would be a big emphasis of mine. It is a partisan office. I am running as a Democrat. If I were clerk back in November of 2020, when Trump started to spew his lies, I would have stood up and pushed back and said, no, here locally, the elections are safe and secure. The ballot machines or voting machines are never connected to the internet. There's always a paper trail. The deputy sheriff escorts the ballots from the paper ballots from the voting locations to the polling board of elections. So those are a quick summary. I am a Democrat running for county clerk, want to modernize the office and protect the right to vote. And I'll just hand out some of my propaganda for you.
Thank you, Neville. We also were expecting
Thank you
candidate for Circuit Court Judge, Laura Holman. Is she here?
Toward the river or away from the river?
She's here. Just give her a second.
If you'll stand on the green spot, everybody will see you.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My name is Laura Chisholm Holman, and I'm running for Jefferson District Court Division 4. It will be an open seat. The judge that's currently in that seat is going to pursue circuit court. So someone new is going to go in. I have 20 years of experience as an attorney, and I'm experienced in every aspect of district court. I started my career as a prosecutor and a victim's advocate. I currently have a solo practice where I do probate work and guardianship, as well as civil litigation. So a lot of the candidates do not have every angle of district court level of experience, but I do. On a more important note, I care a great deal about the community. I've been in Jefferson County for over 20 years, and I grew up in Oldham County. My family, both sides are from Kentucky. I care about what's going on here. I care about what happens in my community, and I care about making a difference. I think we all need to try harder to engage more and interact more in our communities to get things back on track. And that's one of the reasons I'm running for judge, because I haven't been doing that the way I should, but I'm making a commitment now to engage more in the community, and I hope we all can do that. A lot of people have expressed to me they're very concerned about releasing violent offenders back into the community. I'm concerned about that too. I think if someone is not violent, it's fine for them to be released until their court date. But if someone is violent, they need to be held. People need to be safe and need to not walk down the street in fear and worry about who's being held and who isn't. I think there's a lot of important issues going on. I'm not going to waste all of your time because I know you have an important meeting, but I'm going to pass out a couple business cards that have my website. It has more information about my experience and my platform, and I hope you'll take a few minutes and look at it, and I would greatly appreciate it. Again, my name is Laura Holman, Holman. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Holman. Last but not least,
We like your truck.
Patricia Morris. Is she here?
She is not.
I don't hear anything. All right. Then we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, which is the report of the Ethics Commission. And that would be Mr. Embry.
Hello, everybody. Everybody on the council got the memo or the note I sent out on what to expect or where we stood. So I will just say that we're down to 3 people who have not turned in their forms yet. John Carter has contacted all of them recently, and hopefully we'll get that solved by the end of the month. For those who don't get it in, the penalties can be severe, and it will be up to city council to decide what, if any, fine or punishment it may take. But it can be $50 a day for each day late and or removal from office. The other note I'll make is this is an election year, and any council members or other elected or appointed officers who have filled out a form will not have to fill out a form to run in the election. So to run in this year's election, it's good for the whole year. Other than that, we'll just hope you don't have to hear from me in March saying that we've still got people who haven't turned in their forms. Any questions?
Any questions for John? Hearing none. John, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Other reports, the Parks Committee. Linda Wardell.
Yes, thank you. I believe that all of the council members have received my written report. I would just like to highlight a few items. The Parks Committee met in our regular meeting on January 19th, and we also had a special meeting on January 24th. The special meeting was to consider in more detail the engineering report for the Harrods Creek Park Stream Crossing Bridge project. And we got a lot of good detail at that meeting, and the Parks Committee unanimously recommended that we go with, that we propose that the council will consider the weathering steel bowstring truss design for the project. I believe you also all got the minutes for that meeting, which gives a little more detail about why that particular design was recommended, and I can go into more detail if you would like. We also met for our regular February meeting on the 16th of February, and I just want to let everyone know that we have plans for spending the rest of our current fiscal year budget. We have not spent a whole lot of that right now, but we do have plans for using that budget for replacing footbridges in Harrods Creek Park, making recommendations for fixing a couple of areas of the trail, purchasing equipment needed to maintain the parks, and also completion of existing contracts for invasive plant removal. Finally, reimbursements for Eagle Scout projects. Now, so far this year, we've had no Eagle Scout projects, basically because the Scouts haven't been meeting. But I'm happy to report that we have 2 Scouts who are actively planning for Eagle projects expected to be completed in the spring. And that will be to replace a bridge in Putney Pond and Woodlands trails. This bridge was the very first bridge we constructed. A Scout actually constructed it. It's been more than 12 years and things degrade over time. And we're looking at relocating the bridge a little bit to make it more, it will be a shorter span across the creek and also a little more secure. We also have another project for an Eagle Scout to repair and update the mileage markers on the Orange Trail in Harrods Creek Park, and also to put some gravel on an area of the trail that has been severely eroded. The other thing we talked about is to bring back some of the activities in the parks as we think it is safer to do so. So we are looking at ways that we could bring back the ever popular wildflower walks in the spring. And there will be more to come on that as we get into our planning. So that's my report. I'm happy to take questions.
Linda, I think it might be helpful if you could, or maybe with Ron helping you, explain to the council why you think that this bridge you referred to at the beginning of your report is needed.
Yes, certainly.
What is it bridge over, and what's the situation?
Okay, and I'm hoping that the council members actually got the details of our special meeting, but let me just back up and give you a little more detail. At the very beginning of the Orange Trail, once you leave the parking lot of Harrods Creek Park, there is a culvert that was left in place after the MSD Force Main Sewer Project. We actually applied to allow that culvert to remain. That is the one way that we can get equipment across a little stream for maintenance of the trails and for access to the trails. One of the things that is really important to do, one of the reasons why we want to do the bridge project is the fact that the culvert is there impedes the natural flow of the stream. And there is a significant amount of silting, both in front of the culvert and also a little downstream where the canoe launch is. If we remove the culvert and replace it with a bridge, it will restore the stream to its natural flow, and over time will remove some of the sedimentation. The other thing that has happened recently is that on one side of the culvert, there's been a little bit of a subsidence of the bank, which is a problem, and if not corrected, could affect our ability to access the trail. This could be corrected as part of the bridge project at essentially no additional cost. I don't know if that is I don't know if that's enough detail or if you would like more information on that.
No, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Any further?
Do you mind for the subsidence, just because I know you said it's a little bit, we went down this past 2 days ago when it was nice. It looked like probably 3 to 4 feet that had fallen off. I don't know if Ron has a picture that he can show, but it was a little bit more than a little from looking at it. I don't know if that's something that the city has on hand or not.
Okay, that's the picture of the bridge that we envision. That's what fell down. And if you look to the kind of the middle right-hand side of that picture, you can see it actually, yeah, the sign actually fell into that ditch. So this is an issue and something that we really need to think about. Ron, maybe you have additional comments you might want to make.
Why did you choose steel railings?
Okay, it is called a weathered steel truss. And the thing is, it is the most cost-effective option because it has very low maintenance. It's less expensive than aluminum, which could be another option, and has very low maintenance costs. Some of the other options, which included concrete, would be an option. It's very strong, but it's very expensive. We could try to find a used bridge, or we could try to do a railroad flat car. Both of those options would have significant maintenance costs. And a final option would be just to kind of dress up the sides of the culvert, but that doesn't return the stream to its natural state. And we felt that that was a really important issue to eliminate some of the silting problems and really restore the stream to its natural state, which, you know, we're trying to preserve nature here.
How do you keep the banks from continuing to erode?
We've talked to the engineer there, and the one bank that has eroded, it's got a little pipe that comes into that area to drain the meadow. And the plan would be to extend the pipe and then fill in over it with the material that's excavated to build the bridge. You know, we've got to take out the culvert. We've got a lot of material around it, and that will kind of level that area. So it won't be, you know, it'll be more level with the bridge, and the bank hopefully will not continue to erode because it'll be in a more stable position.
Thank you.
And anything else? I guess not. Thank you very much, Linda.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a report on the US 42 safety study. And I'm looking to see who's here for that.
Hey, this is Rebecca. Can you hear me?
Oh, hello, Ms. Thompson. Go ahead.
I'm pretending to be Tom today. You'll have to forgive me.
You're pretending to be who?
Tom Springer.
Oh, you don't look the least bit like him.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome.
So we are working on the US 42 transportation study. They're looking at, obviously, US 42. We held a public meeting back in January and have since been syncing up the public comments that we've heard with surveys and really starting to dig into the alternatives development process, looking at turn lanes and signal timing and roundabouts and all those kind of hands-on meat to understand what's going to fit with the existing traffic and safety needs. So hopefully in the coming weeks, we'll be able to report back and reassemble with the project team to dig into those strategies that we talked about a little bit on the 24th.
What kind of response did you get on your survey?
A ton. I want to say we're up to 700, but I don't have the number in front of me right now. It was very impressive.
Wow.
And we absolutely appreciate all the efforts that you all put in to try and promote that for us. I did want to point out that we are picking up some fresh traffic data this week. The first rounds of counts that we had gotten, there was a culvert closure over on River Road. So we got a lot of skewed volumes, particularly on Timber Ridge and obviously River Road, where people are trying to kind of avoid that area. So we'll talk details here soon, but really are just digging into kind of the behind the scenes stuff at this point.
All right, is that your report?
That's it, unless you want the long version.
Well, we've got a long meeting. I don't know. It's open to questions from the council. Guess nobody has any. Well, thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
The next item is the Personnel Policy Manual Report from Mr. Hulsman and Mrs. Leonard.
And I guess I'll start off. We're going to tag team on this report. So all of you have already received the report. It's a 2-page document. So I'll just paraphrase sort of to bring us back up to speed because the last time we talked about this was a couple of months ago. So rather than read through all of this, the background is that Sandra and I have been working on this for quite a while. And what we want to do is make sure that we are looking at creating the very best policy, personnel policy that we can for our excellent city. So, so since 1997, really, we haven't had where the council has looked at the personnel policy and decided on the personnel policy. So we want to go back to that and make sure that we take a really good look at it this time. So in January of 21, we did at that time, the council decided unanimously to make sure that we did this work and look into making sure that we did everything that we wanted to do. So one of the things that we did was we looked at other comparable cities just to see what they were doing. Sandra's going to talk about the in-depth analysis that she has done of the very lengthy personnel policy that we have now. But our process has been such that our goal has always been to not really worry or dwell on what has happened so far, but what can we do and what should we be doing now so that we can create the best personnel policy for the city going forward.
I might mention that we have invited Andrea Schindelbauer Main from the Kentucky League of Cities, and she is here with us tonight by WebEx, available to discuss all these matters with us. The reason for the KLC is because that is who we worked with for 2 or 3 years in putting together what we have right now. So go ahead.
Actually, we really appreciate all of the updating, especially in regard to the changes over all of those years and the laws that we are required to follow. And we want to keep working toward that. We would like to, the thing is roughly 150 pages. And for the small size of our staff, that's very long. Now we are going to need to keep a lot of those pages. But Greg and I, after looking carefully, feel that it could be shortened. We could make this clear and shorter. And so our first recommendation is that we be allowed to work with Ms. Schindelbauer toward that end to make make it as clear as it possibly can be, but as short as it possibly can be. Another thing that Greg and I determined was that there are internal inconsistencies in the draft manual. And it's not because it wasn't well put together. It's that it has been reworked so many times by different people that it's before we pass anything, we need to go back, we need to look at the areas that are internally inconsistent, and we need to make them consistent. And then after that's done, what we would like to do is come back to you with the manual, with the areas, if there are any, where the manual is substantially different from what our survey of neighboring cities did. And then we can talk about those differences and see if we think we can see how we as a city want to go forward in those areas in the future. So our recommendations are that we condense the manual, that we make it internally consistent, and then after that's done, that we determine specific personnel benefits. And again, as Greg said, we don't want to take anything away from our current employees. But in the event that we're giving a benefit that is substantially different from what our competitors in the local labor market give, we should at least talk about whether or not we want to do that.
Okay, I'd like to chime in on top of what both of you have said, because I want us to do this correctly. Okay, they're really, trying to find the right words to say this. Most of the personnel policy manual is an executive function. I don't say that with any aggrandizement of myself. It would be true of any mayor, whoever it was. The part that is not is the council's part is the part that involves money, such as vacation benefits or sick leave benefits, that kind of thing. Having said that, I would like to make an offer to take advantage of your study and your work, as well as to include the work that we've done with KLC. And the offer is this, that I personally, as the only executive in the city, will work with you and go through the whole thing with you. And then after we've done all that, we'll go back to Andrea or Chris Johnson at KLC and see what they think of what we've done as compared with what's already been done. Does that sound fair?
Actually, in a way, we have done that. And I think that we could expedite matters if we had Ms. Schindelbauer Main with us at that meeting.
Well,
Because
that's
she
fine.
has
That's fine if
knowledge that we
she's
don't
willing.
have.
If she's willing. Now, we entered into a contract with KLC for a certain amount of money. And if we're going to bring them back in with anything of any consequence, then we'll have to take another look at the price of that contract, just to be fair to KLC.
Well, and Mayor, let me just chime in. I'm more than happy to work with you all and go through this page by page and, whatever we need to do to get this done, because I definitely want to see you all with a good end product. As far as the cost, don't worry about that. Like, we're good. We're not in this to make any money. So, we want to get this done. So whatever it takes, I'm happy to do it.
Then why don't we set something up with Sandra and Greg and you and me and possibly John Carter. I don't want to drag him into this unnecessarily, but he may want to be part of this too. And the 4 or 5 of us take a look at everything and see where we are and where we want to be. Does that sound good?
That's excellent.
Thank you.
Well, I thank you for all the work you've done. I hate to bring up this division between executive and council, especially after you've done so much work. And I think that together we can put something that we all agree on.
That sounds
Work
good
as a
to me.
team.
Yes,
Okay, well,
definitely.
Work as a team.
We'll set something up in the very near future. I mean, I talk with friends, I talk with Greg almost every day, so we'll set something up soon.
Sounds good.
All
Thank
right.
you, Angela. Thank you, John.
Thank
Yes, sir.
you.
Sandra, not so fast, because we're next to get to the library report if there is one.
The library is going very smoothly. We will have a book sale mid-May. It will not be as populated with books as the last one, which was in lieu of 3 book sales. It'll be a normal book sale. So if you have any things you've cleaned out of your closets or your shelves, bring them in. We'd love to have them.
You're in trouble now because I've got an awful lot of books I want to give you.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Yeah, Sally says, be careful what you wish for. Let's move into the police report. We're moving right along. Jeff Sherrard, is he there, or Tony Dunham?
Yeah, I'm here. Jeff's here. Since you all have got so much, I'll be very brief. Talk just about a couple of reports. The one burglary report, I actually mentioned last month, the one in Sutherland. The only significance in that is there have been a few other reports, not in Prospect, but in neighboring cities. Indian Hills has had this, basically it's the same people because it's a very unique MO in the way that they're getting in and what they're taking, how they're doing it. They also hit Sanctuary Bluff, just up 42, and then another location off of Wolf Pen. There's no rhyme or reason to, how far along these things have been. They've been captured on video a couple times. There's 2 guys that go in, but thanks a lot, COVID. They've been wearing COVID masks every time they've been on video, and I don't know that I could have identified them if it was my own brother. So that's bad part about that. It's great video. It's very clear. but they're so covered up, it's hard to make out who it is. But it's a very unique MO. I'm not going to talk about it here, but that's how we know who it is. And they're only able to take what they carry with them. So it's not somebody that's backing up a truck or anything and taking big TVs or anything like that. This is what you can take in your hands and in small carrying cases or whatever. So
They must also, the one in Sutherland, if I were going to rob a house, I would not pick that house because it's situated on a corner. The front and the house, back of the house are both visible at
that's
least from
true.
2 directions. I
But
mean,
but it also happened to be somebody that doesn't come home very often.
I agree with that. And it's almost like they knew that.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Mhm.
So they're looking into that aspect. How do they know when certain people may not be coming home for hours at a time? They also have a method for checking to see if anybody's home first. But in the other report, we had a theft, the one that's listed on here that happened over a period of time. That actually involved a theft from a relative, an elderly lady living in a house here in Fox Harbor. And one of her daughters is basically stealing from her. And another daughter who's power of attorney in another state is now wanting to crack in. She's not so concerned that she's willing to leave her other state and come here and take care of it. So she's been trying to get us to do it. But anyway, we've got the banks involved and everything like that. But essentially the ball's in their court now as to how or if they're going to prosecute anything. Usually when it comes to family, that's difficult, but we know how much is taken, where it's taken from. We've got bank records, we've got everything else involved. But it feels like one of those cases where you've done an awful lot of work and somebody's just going to put it in a file someplace because they're not going to prosecute it. But we've done everything we can do. The one missing person report that's listed, it's listed on there, person being depressed and suicidal. That's actually a Metro case. The person that reported it lived in Prospect. It was a child that doesn't live here, lives in Metro, but because they come and go at times, but it's not really a Prospect case, but we helped them report it, and then Metro also reported it. But that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
I guess not, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We move into unfinished business. Is there any? If not, we'll go into new business. And the first item is a resolution for, well, it's resolution 1-22 for the adoption of the Kipta Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. And I have written down here on my agenda, Hayden Kendall from Kipta. Oh, there she is.
Yes, hi. How is everybody doing?
What are we talking about here?
So this is a resolution to authorize the adoption of our regional hazard.
We lost your sound, Hayden.
Oh, sorry about that. I'll start over. So I work at the Kipta Area Development District. For those of you who don't know, we oversee a 7-county region, and that includes Oldham. And what this resolution is doing is authorizing the adoption of the Kipta Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. And Jefferson County, they do their own plan. So we're responsible for creating the plan for 6 other the 6 remaining counties. And we've been working over the past year with Oldham County and representatives from the county and developing the plan. And you would have this resolution every 5 years. So every 5 years, we fully update the plan, and then we have to get all the cities and counties in our region to approve it. So basically, once you approve or adopt this plan, it makes you eligible for FEMA funding. It keeps you in line with FEMA.
What is a hazard mitigation plan? What does that involve?
So I should have provided the mayor and the clerk with a link, but this year it is an online resource. So it can be found at kiptahmp.org. And I can send that out in an email as well. So the whole plan is online. It essentially outlines the potential hazards in our region and provides data that you can interact with. For example, if you were giving a presentation on some flooding events that happened, flooding is obviously one of our major hazards. You could utilize some of this data. It's a really nice website, and you can check it out.
Is there a timeline attached to this?
You mean in terms of when we need the resolution approved by?
Yes.
We expected that we would be finished in the beginning of March. So FEMA is expecting that we're going to be finished getting these resolutions about the second week of March, but it's nothing set in stone. You know, if you have more questions, we can absolutely get those answered for you.
Well, I'd just like to read the plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping, I'm sorry, I did send out the link, but I guess if you need time to review the plan, we can reschedule the resolution for the next meeting.
So FEMA is going to do their thing as they always have done. And so why do we have to, why are you asking this of us? What is the reason?
So it just keeps you in line. Basically, for example, a good example is the tornado that just hit in Western Kentucky. The first thing FEMA does when they come to your city is say, okay, where's your hazard mitigation plan? It outlines goals and actions associated with your county, and down to, well, some things are available on city level, but the reason that we do a regional plan is because some of the cities and outside counties outside of Jefferson don't have enough data or information to have a plan, a substantial plan for themselves. So that's why we do a regional plan.
Okay, so I get it, and it's a good thing. And so, so definitely you all have a plan, but I'm still struggling, and I'm sorry for my ignorance. I'm struggling as to why the city of Prospect, which does not have a specific plan, why are you asking us to, yeah.
Sorry, that's because of the data. So there's not enough data available to create a plan. This shouldn't be confused with an emergency management plan. The city of Prospect could certainly develop an emergency management plan. You know, we have Mount Washington, the city of Mount Washington, they have a emergency manager. So you could have your own emergency management plan, but this is more, it's just information and goals associated with these potential hazards. So it's not something that you would be looking at to tell you what to do in an emergency. It's more so providing information about the region and the potential hazards that could affect the area. Does that
is this for Prospect? Is it specific to that very small part of Prospect that is in Oldham County?
Right. It's included as one of our hazard mitigation cities, even though it is a small portion of in Oldham County. They include it as one of the HMP, the hazard mitigation cities within Oldham County.
I can't see where that would be any sort of a flood problem there. The elevation is so high. We're only talking about that. Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's necessarily a flood problem in your area, that you're just included within the parameter. Like, basically this plan encompasses your city. So it makes you, if you did have a flooding event, you would use this plan to reference goals and actions in order to get funding from FEMA. So if you didn't have the plan, FEMA will not give you funding. If you were to,
are we only talking about that area that is in Oldham County?
To my knowledge, yes, but I can absolutely ask FEMA if it would apply for the whole city, even what's outside of Oldham County, or if you all are split between Jefferson and the Kipta Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan, because obviously you might be also encompassed within Jefferson's plan. But as far as I know, our plan is what the city of Prospect would use. So I can absolutely get clarification for you on that.
We'd have to have clarification because the bulk of our city is in Jefferson County.
Right. I guess you're just one of the bigger cities within Oldham. That's the best I can answer that. It doesn't hurt you to authorize this plan. It only helps you and keeps you eligible for that funding, even though you all are a small part of the county.
But would we have to do what the plan says for the entire city or just for the small portion?
No, the plan, basically the goals and actions are outlined at the county level. So there's nothing that dictates any sort of, that forces you to do any sort of action or abide by what's said in the plan. But essentially, the cities are too small to, have their own goals and actions. So most of the goals outlined are for the counties themselves. And so the people that we've been working with, for example, are the county emergency managers. And this just kind of gives a blanket clearance, I guess, for all the cities within in case FEMA is needed or funding is applied for. For example, if Oldham wants to apply for FEMA funding and you for some reason didn't adopt this resolution, that might keep Oldham from being able to receive FEMA funding because a portion of their county is not covered by the plan.
We just answered
That's-
the question
that's
that I
important.
had, which was, what would be the downside if we did not adopt this plan, did not pass this resolution? And the
Well,
downside,
I think we need to.
according to you just now, is that it could prevent Oldham County, the entire county, from getting FEMA assistance.
Correct. And I will resend the email. There's also, we sent this plan to FEMA. It was approved by the Kipta Board of Directors and the Regional Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee back in January. So I can resend to the entire council the website, that information, and a little bit of the backstory, just so that you have it in writing, if that makes you feel better. All I can say right now is that there's definitely not a downside to you authorizing the plan.
Have the balance of the cities in Oldham County signed on to this?
Yes, we have everyone but Prospect and River Bluff at the moment, and Oldham County passed their resolution on January 18th at Fiscal Court.
What is River Bluff's position? If you know?
They just haven't put it. It's on the agenda for next month.
Thank you.
Am I correct that what this is all about is if we have a tornado, if we want to get FEMA funds, we cannot get them unless we've passed a resolution like this?
Correct. It is a requirement of FEMA.
Funds only for that tiny part of the city.
Right, I understand. But unless you have passed a resolution like this, if there's a tornado, as I read it, you cannot get FEMA funds. Your
Correct.
residents
So
cannot.
even though it's a small portion of your city, I would assume that you would still want it to be covered under
Right,
under a hazard mitigation plan.
I understand and I agree. Okay.
Yeah, we do. We're not trying to rake you over the coals. We just
Oh, no.
very, very careful about what we approve, and we just want to make sure we're making the right decision.
Oh, I completely understand. And I don't want it to feel like we're springing this upon you. So by all means, we are happy to, work with you and provide you with any information that you need.
I think I would feel more comfortable if I could just read it first
Okay.
and revisit this next month. I don't know how everyone else feels. If 30 days from now it's not going to hurt us, then I'd like to have that time to at least read I guess it would be the Disaster Mitigation Act or whatever it is. I'd just like to read that.
Okay.
I suggest we pass this to our next meeting.
I don't see a reason why we can't adopt a plan right now.
I can't vote for something I have not read. I just can't.
Okay, I can.
Yeah, I can vote for it, but I suggest we pass it to next month and give people who want to read more about it an opportunity to do that. And from what you're saying, Hayden, we can wait till next month safely.
Yeah, that will be fine. I will make a note. And so your next, when would your next city council meeting be? On the
It's March
On the-
21st.
The third
Okay.
Monday of the month.
Okay. Yeah, I will put that in my calendar, and I'll be sure to get you that information.
And
Even
note
has the
that it's on Monday next month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the existing plan expired? I guess is my only question. Are we in a gap?
Yeah, well, so actually what happened was the plan technically expired last year. So this is a few months delayed, and it's because FEMA was delayed in issuing the funding because of COVID. So
That's my only worry is a disaster brewing now next month.
yeah, right.
Chances are not good.
But I would say that, you know, we've already made so much progress, and I don't think I have all faith that by, you know, if a disaster happens next month, we will already have this passed. I doubt something will happen in the next 3 weeks. And if it does, Oldham County has passed it, and I would assume that they know that we're in this process and that they would work with us. So let's hope that there's no disasters.
Thank you.
Sure.
I take it the sense of the council, or at least the majority of us, that we pass this until next month. Without objection, we'll move on. And Hayden, thank you for
Yes,
coming.
thank you all. I will send an email shortly. Thank you.
Which brings us to the next resolution. What this 2-2022 does, it makes an election a one-time choice that we would adopt the ARPA formula that allows us to consider every bit of the ARPA money we get as lost revenue. And that's what it does. So that's on the table. That's up for adoption.
Could you explain to us who's recommended this and the wording for it?
I recommend it because what it does is it says that all cities may, up to the tune of $10 million, treat all the ARPA money they get as lost revenue. Now, prior to the most recent advice that came from Treasury, that was not true. There was a formula that we applied back when we passed this budget that you had to calculate according to a certain formula, and that was how much you could treat it as lost revenue, which is the reason that in the budget as it sits today, there's $308,000 in the revenue portion of the budget, because that was calculated according to the formula they gave us. John Carter thinks that that calculation was not done quite correctly, and it shouldn't have been quite as much as 308. Be that as it may, that's what we did. What the most recent final rule of the Treasury says, doesn't matter. You don't have to use a formula. If you don't want to, you can just conclusively presume that up to $10 million of what you get is lost revenue, and you can plug it into your general revenue. That's what it does. If you don't adopt this, then you're back to doing the formula.
John, may I be recognized?
Sure.
I'll move the approval of the resolution that's been distributed with the packet.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Frank,
Aye.
Greg,
Yes.
Sandra,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Unanimously passed, and that resolution is adopted. We now come to the presentation of the American Rescue Plan Act survey, the city survey, and various proposals for expenditures of the ARPA money. I'm going to turn that over to John Carter, who conducted that survey.
John, could I just make a sort of an overview statement about that? First of all, I applaud the city asking the residents for their opinions. And I'm sure we were all very pleased to see so many of additional suggestions that were allowed in the survey and the very last question. And I think there were approximately 300 additional suggestions, some of them repetitive, but still we had 300 additional suggestions. So in addition to the ones that were initially on the survey, there were all these others. And I like that. And I love the fact that our citizens, I know we all do, are so engaged in this community and care so much about us. So I don't know, my thoughts are, I don't want it to take a long time, but I think if we had a facilitator, if we hired a facilitator, for example, someone who could guide us all through a process, and it would be an open meeting, whereby we would go through all of the suggestions. It would be in a way for the city to create a strategic plan, which we don't have formally, a strategic plan. So, but it would be a way for us, I think, to come together and be led by a facilitator who could pull out of us and a prioritization of the things that we want to do with these ARPA funds. So I'll just stop right there, but that's kind of my, I'm getting away from the survey itself, but I'm thinking of maybe a process of what we can do with all the information that came out of that survey.
Well, we had the surveys and we have the entire council here, and I thought maybe we'd have a discussion about what members of the council thought based on their own opinions in the survey that we should do. And I'm not sure that John Carter heard me. Is he there?
I'm here.
Okay, John, do you want to lead us through the survey?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a few things and then open it to the floor and let you all talk. We did have approximately 320 responses, and based on the last census, that's about 8% of the population. If you remove some items, like the top item happened to be mitigation of drainage issues, but as the mayor and I have discussed, these are the majority of those issues should be paid by MSD funds, which the residents pay separately from anything that ARPA could contribute. So if you take out that top item, your next few items all relate to walkways, bike paths, sidewalks, repair of sidewalks, building new sidewalks, and a lot of interest in connectivity of the city overall with either the commercial corridor or town center, as well as park infrastructure. Those are all the very top items. Of course, there's other things. And I thought I might pass it on over to Don initially to talk about some of the comments that he had taken time to outline for the council. It was on the last page of what was distributed to you. I don't know. Sorry to spring that on you, Don. I don't know if you're prepared.
Yeah, thanks for that, Don. You did a great job of summarizing everything. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Sure. But basically what I did is I went through the comments and I didn't get through all of them. I got it through about 200. And as I read through them, I noticed there were some obvious buckets. And so I kind of I kind of broke it down in buckets and there was some subjectivity. Some people in their comments mentioned 4 or 5 things. And so I kind of took the tone of it and to decide what bucket it went. And then I summarized that and sent it out. And just give you an overview, the number one was of the 201, 47 said pedestrian, walking, biking, sidewalks, want pedestrian neighborhood and commercial connectivity. They want to move about not only the neighborhood, but there was a strong sentiment. They would like to walk from Kroger's to the post office, so to speak, and have some connectivity some safe connectivity. Number 2 was 36, and it was all US 42, and that's pretty much issues being addressed by the safety study. Number 3 is upgrade city center, community gathering, more restaurants, commercial in area, and attracted village. There were comments like, hey, you know what? Prospect's a city, but you drive through it, you never know it. There's no town center. There's nothing that draws people together. And they would like to see that. They would like to see a village feel. The next one was parks, 24, better access to Hunting Creek parks. Like to see dog parks. There were a lot of comments. Would like to see pickleball courts and tennis. Next, Todd was 24, safety, more police patrols, traffic enforcement, better equipment, cameras at stoplights. They don't like the running of stoplights. They would like to see better control of that. 21, non-feasible ideas, suggestions for improvement outside of city's capability or responsibility. Then 11 for lighting, both 42 in the neighborhood, 8 for avoid LDG development, and then 5 commented on MSD in drainage. So that all totaled up to the 201, and that was all focused on the comment section. But it seemed like there was again a strong sentiment for developing a city center and then having connectivity not only between the neighborhoods but also downtown in the commercial area. Questions, comments?
I don't know anything else to say, but except thank you. That was a great summary.
One item of connectivity we've been taking a look at is connecting the landings to City Hall and Little Hunting Creek Park. And Don came up with a parallel situation down in Florida. And the reason for that is that to get connection, a pedestrian connection between the landings and City Hall and Little Hunting Creek Park, there are really 2 possibilities. And one is to put a sidewalk right along US 42 between City Hall and Timber Ridge Drive. I personally don't like that option because I wouldn't want people walking that right along the edge of US 42 with cars going by at whatever speed. But the other possibility is to go down behind City Hall over to Putney Pond. Well, Don came up with this parallel situation out of Florida where basically they build a boardwalk, which actually would be cheaper than putting in a concrete walkway. And I like that idea. So that's one possible feature of connectivity that would be fairly, I think, low-hanging fruit, basically. Now, across the street
Who
in the
would use
commercial
this?
area, I'm sorry?
You're talking about the landings through the park to City Hall?
Yes, I am.
Who would use that?
Well, I think people in the landings, there's two large condominiums off of Timber Ridge. And again, that would connect, fundamentally, you make the connection of those neighborhoods with the other neighborhoods. That
I have no trouble with neighborhood connections, but I don't think people are going to want to walk to City Hall.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don, you were saying something?
I was saying that it would make a connection to the other neighborhoods as well as provide access to City Hall. It would also do something else, and that's what we saw in Florida, where we came up with the idea. Fundamentally, they built a little town called Ponce Inlet, built from a county roadway back to the intercoastal, and it went about 3/4 of a mile. And this is a tidal area. It only floods twice a day, but it provided access to the intercoastal. Built the walkway out, and they had a little fishing area, and it was hugely popular with the residents as well as the many visitors. And why it was so popular is it provided access to a natural area that you couldn't possibly do yourself. I mean, there were plants, but it would be difficult to walk through. Well, same thing with Putney Pond. Putney Pond is a huge asset to the city. If you remember, we went to Carmel and Mayor Brainerd talked about, he said there was like 30 acres behind him and he had a koi pond, but he wanted to put in a natural area. Well, we've got one, and it's not more than a couple hundred yards from City Hall, and it's a great natural resource. It's a great resource for a prospect. Putting a boardwalk in would allow some opportunity to go through that area and enjoy the natural aspect. Even as Putney Pond becomes a wetlands, and I think it's a huge opportunity for the city to make that area available. And right now, it's not much access. You can't really get around Putney Pond. You can get through back behind City Hall, but it's a difficult walk. And this would ease that. And somebody with a baby carriage could come up. Somebody could make access to the library. They could walk over there from the landings, and that's in that section of the neighborhood without going to 42.
John, could I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
So it's a great conversation. We could continue it, but I don't think we are going to make a decision tonight on paths or anything else. And not that I don't want to, but I just think that I feel like a little kid, and on my birthday somebody gave me $100 and I could go out and spend it for anything I want. I'd have to think about it a little bit. Maybe I want a new bicycle, or maybe I want something else, but that's sort of what we have before us today. We have this wonderful opportunity with the flexibility of these ARPA funds now to use it a whole lot more than we originally thought. So I go back to what do we want to do? And that's, I think, is going to be a long discussion about what do we want our community to have with these funds. And maybe it's pathways, and maybe it's lighting. And I saw some of the responses were infrastructure first. And I saw another ones that said safety first. And all those things make a lot of sense to me. But I would really be, I would like it if we just all got together, and it might take hours to do it, but to figure out, okay, what is the prioritization of all of these things that we think that we'd like to do? Which ones do we want to take on? We can't do them all. We can't afford them all.
Greg, are you suggesting that we have a special meeting?
Yes,
to
sir.
Talk about just this?
Yes, sir. Open meeting.
How do the rest of you feel about that?
May I be recognized, John?
Yes, sir. Yes,
I don't
sir.
have any problem with having another meeting, but we're all together right now. We can at least start the discussion. And I want to say, I think Don's idea is a terrific idea. It fits in with what a large number of our citizens stated was a top priority, which is better pedestrian access among the neighborhoods. we've got the QK4 study from 2010 that set out a pretty detailed plan on connecting the neighborhoods with walkways. What I would foresee is this would be a good start on that. And so I think it's great to consider all the options, but the citizens have told us this is the kind of thing they're interested in. I think it's a great, people want to be outside. That's part of what this is. People want exercise. They want to be out walking around.
Doug, this is Frank. I'm glad you mentioned that study. I was going to bring it up, but there are two. So we have a sound basis for starting the discussion.
Right. And it was a good study. I read it in connection with the survey results, and it really lays out a lot of good ways to connect the commercial district, the kind of thing Don was talking about earlier, and different routes for sidewalks and that sort of thing. So it's very helpful.
I like connectivity. We have this US 42 study that won't be finished until July, and I don't know what it's going to recommend happen along US 42. None of us do. So that kind of makes me think, and I don't want to wait too long, but that kind of makes me want to think, well, let's don't be putting on paths that might end up having to be ripped out. So I don't know.
Yeah, I would think we'd want to consult with the QK4 folks about whatever we come up with. And I think there's an opportunity to further improve Little Hunting Creek Park. I know we had the design for the pavilion. I think that'd be something for us to consider. There was a lot of support for further support of our parks.
So we have the money approved already for the Little Hunting Creek Park, I believe. So that, as far as the pavilion and the playground and the pathway, I don't know what else we would do there, but.
Expanded parking.
Oh, the parking lot, I think that's en route too.
Yeah, the parking lot
process.
included, yeah. And
Yeah,
Greg,
that's-
for, oh, sorry, if you weren't done. Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
No, that's all right. I was kind of rambling on.
No, you're fine. For Don's idea, because I know that sprung on him, or he's had that thought, but I know that the details of the boardwalk came about from the survey, and then looking back at the 2010. Tom Springer did mention, and it was in a meeting, I've been to so many, last week, I think, where it was, he did talk about the, depending on how much land was bought based on the US 42 and whether it leans left or right on the road apparent would obviously make a difference, in terms of tearing up if you put sidewalks in. He did mention pretty safe zones would be Don's kind of idea for not just Don's idea, but the boardwalk piece out by Putney Pond. He goes, that is not going to be anything of a touch. And then one that came up from the 2010 study, which was to do the crosswalk at Sedgwick over to the Prospect Point Shopping Center, and it was actually I can't think of his name, is Tom Reed, Mr. Reed. He was very like, that would benefit no matter what whatever got reconfigured at River Road. They thought that would be an exceptionally inexpensive but worthwhile thing. They were just mentioning ideas that they had looked at before, and then based on the survey results for connectivity. They did point out one item where it was that sidewalks and whatnot, yeah, they're only used by the people that are in that area, but when you create a network, they're beneficial by the whole city. So when you look at them individually, it's like, well, who does that benefit? But it is, if you have a cohesive plan, it's obviously that you create a network. So I just thought I'd pass that along, that
No, I totally agree with you. And if Don's thing would expand to connect with Fox Harbor, I'd like it a lot better.
and it would.
Agreed.
I think
Yes.
Don cut himself short. Go ahead, Don. I don't want to step on you there.
No, that's fine. It would connect to Fox Harbor.
See, that pulls in two subdivisions, right?
And then you
Yes.
get Creek on top of that. So
Right.
you get that River Road crosswalk, and now we've got Sutherland on board. You grab
Well,
Innisbrook in there.
except that really wasn't much of a crosswalk. It was really a striped area on River Road. And if you drive that often, which I do, I would not want to take that during rush hour traffic, no matter how much striping they did.
Yeah, and that was one thing they did mention, you know, they're like, hey, everything the way it is not a fathomable approach to what would go there, but they were trying to, I think, not advocate, but whatever, try to help the city meet a goal of connectivity, but force the brain to go, it's not the way it is, but the way that you could make it. And the flashing yellow light and different, there are safety standards to meet, you know, and if it didn't meet it, it doesn't go there no matter what. But they were trying to advocate for, I wholeheartedly hear it's a no, because I think we all said the same thing. Man, you turn around, I think the mayor brought it up and he was like, you turn around that turn at River Road coming from like Sutherland and Innisbrook, and people have a good clip to them. I've thought many times, I'm like, ooh, I'm trying to turn into please and thank you. And I just hope the guy behind me slows down. But they did talk about that. It's certainly, they have better words that are more articulate than I am, but they were kind of like, just, we would never put anything unsafe there.
No, I totally agree with you.
I happen to have the pleasure of working on a lighting project about, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And I remember that one component of it was installing street lighting. We call it Prospect Central, which is basically this couple hundred feet out here in front of us, with special lighting, similar to what Simpsonville did. Excuse me. And so anyway, why do I mention that? I mention that because let's say we decide to do the walkways, but I think we're going to decide, well, maybe we want the lighting too, or maybe we can't afford to do all the walkways everywhere. Maybe that would eat up the 900 and something thousand that we have, probably would. So maybe we want a little bit of walkway and a little bit of street lighting and a little bit of infrastructure. So that's why I think it would be good for us to come together and decide, what do we want to do with this great benefit that we've come across.
It's roughly $1 million.
Roughly $1 million. Thank you, federal government. Of course, it's our money, but we got it back. So, but anyway, that's my thinking. I guess I'll shut up. I've said that 3 times now, but that's my thinking.
Well, it does sound like it would be beneficial to us to schedule a special meeting just to deal with this issue.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that sounds good too for timing. If, you know, Greg's idea of creating sort of that vision statement sort of plan. Sorry, Greg, I'm butchering your language here. You get a better way to say it, but you know, an actual long-term plan, if you will, because it is to give some idea. I was thinking about it the other day for like Little Hunting Creek Park, you know, that started a year ago. And the plans are just now going to maybe go out to bid in May. So it's a little over a year to come up with these products. Like you said, Greg, if we're integrating lighting and a sidewalk or even permitting, and since we have a lot of stream crossings, the permitting and stuff takes time, that if that money pretty much needs to be done by December of 2024, there's till 2026 for extra allocation, but I don't know legally how that works in, since we pass budgets yearly. To be honest, I have no idea, even if I don't know the legal soundness of holding it. I really don't know, but at a minimum, worst case, it's December of 2024. So I think a special meeting sounds great if it gets us to do, to kind of create a plan, because permitting and planning is going to eat up some time, and we're in 2022 already. So I think it's a great idea. I think it's good.
I'm open to a special meeting. I do think we should put some time parameters on it, so we don't just go and go and go. But if we can knock something out in an hour and a half to 2 hours, I'd be all on board with that.
I agree with that. And there are a couple other things that haven't even been brought up. One that has been floated that several of you have communicated to me or to others that you like the idea. One is painting City Hall. And there have been several positives. I haven't heard any negatives. There may be some. We don't have a price on that yet. We'd have to get together with a painting contractor. Greg and I have already met with a woman who sort of like an exterior designer as opposed to an interior designer. Neither of us liked what she recommended, so we're kind of on our own there. She only cost $100, which I'm paying for out of the mayor's contingency fund. But several people have said that they like that idea. Another place that we need to spend a little money, we need to fix the cupola on top of the roof, which is leaking again. And there's a question that you all need to be thinking about when you come together at the special meeting. Do you want to replace the cupola with a new one that costs of about $15,000 or $20,000, or do you want to just get rid of it and just roof it over? So that's, I'm not going one way or the other. I'm just saying that's an issue that's out there. Painting City Hall, if you want to paint it, there are a couple of, there are several homes that have painted brick as you go down, say, Rockingham Road, painted white or painted cream color. You can take a look at those, see what you think. So that's an issue.
John, I would suggest when we have our meeting, we have this as we do for this one, we have an agenda with some of these topics, and that we put some suggested time limits on each topic so we can cover everything and all get our ideas out on the table.
It's a good idea, and I can try to put some approximate dollar figures on each one.
Can I piggyback on that idea? I think it's a good idea as well. But how about this? Would the council allow me to search for a professional facilitator whom we would pay? And I'll find out what those charges are. And that person would help us to extract all the ideas. The way that facilitation process works, by the way, is it's great when you have a plethora of items to go through. And so the first process usually is to gather them together into similar items. And then each person is allowed to, so to speak, politic for their ideas. So whether that would be pathways or painting the exterior of City Hall, and then the rest of us listen to those ideas. And so we each take our turn at that. And then we go back and we re-vote on everything. And it's a great process, I think. Don, you probably went through it at GE, but it's been very successful for me and in my career a number of times. And so if the council and mayor, if you would allow, I think that would be a good way. It's a party that would be not invested in it like we are, but it would, that person, he or she would guide us through the process.
No, that's up to you all. I would raise these two questions. One, what would that cost? And two, what would it get us that we don't already have?
If we don't have a facilitator, I think it would be more troublesome to for us to, well, let me put it this way. I think a facilitator would help us pull together the best ideas of each of us. Would extract what we want. It's a way of keeping the process going. So we don't have to do it, but I think it would be a good thing.
No, you guys control the money. It's up to you what you want to do about it. I just wanted to raise those two questions. What would it cost and what would it get us?
Greg, do you have an idea on the cost of a facilitator?
I really don't. I'm sorry.
No,
Actually,
that's okay.
we had this a great deal when I worked for a school district. And I appreciate one of the things that Greg said, and that is you've got a neutral party who's leading the discussion. And I think to a large extent that's helpful. I think that it allows all of us to be advocates for our own ideas. So unless it's incredibly expensive, I support what Greg has proposed.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a good idea. The only question I have is cost. And I do have the other cost being our time. I mean, I'd be good for about 2 hours and something like this. And after that, you'd lose me. So I think a facilitator might be able to help us move through it expeditiously, fairly. You know, if assuming it's something that costs us a couple $100, I'd be open to that.
I'm thinking it'd be more like 1,500.
Oh, then I'm not
Well,
going to be. for that.
except I was thinking it'd be more like 4 hours instead of like 2.
Well, you're not going to get 4 hours from me.
Yeah.
Chris, what does a mediator cost?
What does a mediator cost?
Yeah,
It depends on what the particular mediation is. Anywhere from 400 an hour, or really 350 an hour to 1,000. It depends on what you're mediating.
Would Chris or
Depends on
John
how
Clark have previous experience?
many hours will be involved total. If you only have 3 or 4 hours, then obviously they've got to build something in for getting up to stuff and all that. If you've got 2 weeks, it's, it's a different rate. So it's hard to say. You'd probably get somebody for 500 an hour for 4 hours.
where do you go to get a facilitator?
Oh, there are people who just, that's what they do for a living.
Would Chris or John Clark have the background or
No.
desire to do such a thing?
No, it's a different ballgame.
What about the League of Cities? Do you think they could advise us on that?
They very possibly could be. In fact, they list themselves. I've forgotten what kind of facilitating they do, but they do list that for something. That's a good
That's a
idea.
possibility.
Mhm.
What did you say?
ALC.
We check with them.
What if we tentatively thought up to $1,000? Is that acceptable?
It says $500 an hour if we're going to meet for 2 hours. So I'd like to, let's just find out what they propose, and then we can address it rather than us coming up with a number.
I'll find out. Give me a couple days and I'll by email, I'll let all of you all know.
That's great.
I might ask 2 or 3 just to see who's out there.
good
I'll definitely,
suggestion.
that's a good idea about KLC. That's really good.
Well, it's a good suggestion. I appreciate you proposing it, and it could be very helpful.
I'll say this, I don't think it's all there, but you all appropriate $5,000 a year for the mayor's discretionary fund. And usually by the end of the year, there's still $4,000 in it that I haven't spent. So some of that money could go to this if you wanted to do it, because I don't know where else in the budget it would be. So Greg and I'll talk. Are y'all ready to move on?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Just one more piece of business before we get to the closed session and comments from citizens, and that is to have a first reading of the ordinance amending the budget for the general fund for the year begin for the current fiscal year. Would someone care to give that a first reading?
I'll do it.
John, aren't we going to make a motion that we bring it to the floor for the first reading? Otherwise, we won't have a discussion.
Okay.
Well, you can do that if you want to.
Yeah,
It's up
that's
to you.
good.
Actually, we can do that, and apparently we have done it in the past by custom, but it's not, having read the city officials legal handbook, which is very handy reference, that's not anything that's required, although a number of cities do it by custom.
Doug, you're both right. You don't have to do it that way, but this council has chosen to do it that way.
Correct.
So do you want to make a motion?
I'll go ahead and you want to do it, Frank? You want to make that?
Well, I move that we bring ordinance number 614, series 2022 to the floor for a first reading.
I'll second it.
Greg, you
I second
second it?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Oh, we have discussion.
We have discussion now.
I have a question. Several questions, actually. The American Rescue Plan Act funds that are identified here as 327,000 odd. Do we have that money already?
Yes,
Is that the exact amount?
yes,
Good.
Is it earmarked for anything particular?
no. No, the first part of this amendment simply puts it into the general budget, in the revenue portion of the general budget, as we did back when we were operating under a formula and put the 308,000 in. Now that we've got carte blanche, we can put the rest of it, the 327 in. So that part of it just adds that to the revenue.
Okay, it looks like it's in two categories. One is the police equipment and the other is parks maintenance. Is that correct?
Well, actually, it was amended this afternoon. The police part is the same as it was. And Jeff's there, he could explain to you what it is the police need and why they need it, but that comes to $103,400 for new radios and new firearms. The balance of it now is split between parks and I forget the number. I think it's 35,000 for investment in City Hall, things like the cupola, if you want to do that, and the front door. It was not enough money in the existing budget to do the needed repairs to the front door. We have a quote from Anderson Window Walls to do a new entranceway there at that decrepit front door that's such a eyesore. So those two items are in at 35,000. Police are in at 103,400, and the balance is in for parks.
Okay, in the front door, we have a great deal of information on the police, and I applaud them. I think they did a great job of laying it all out. But we have seen no backup information on the rest of it. We don't, except for this 35,000 you're talking about now, we don't even know what this is going to do.
Well, it's going to do two things. The 35,000 is going to replace the cupola on the roof and stop the leaking that's coming down into the library. Ron and I estimate that'll be about $20,000. And
Okay, so are we saying the front door is 15,000?
That's the bid that we've got from Anderson Window Walls.
$15,000 for that door?
Yeah. It's an all new entryway.
Don't we already have some money in the original budget for that door?
Frank, I don't know that we do. I've got some documents here that
I think it was 6,000.
Yeah, we did
Yeah, I
originally,
agree.
it wasn't enough money. And then when Ron had someone come out, I forgot who it was, Anderson, and they looked at it, that whole dang on door is so dilapidated that they couldn't fix just the door. They had to do the whole frame. So it's the
Yeah,
whole surround. So if
We didn't have that information back when we made the budget.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I thought I
it-
heard, I thought I heard Ron say that included new shutters as well. And I could be wrong there, and I don't know if he's on the call, but I think he said it was a full reframing and shutters. I could be wrong.
For the whole building?
For the whole building. I
Oh,
could
no,
be
that'd
wrong.
be enough. Yeah,
That
you
did
may be
not,
right, but that
that
doesn't.
did not
mean-
include the shutters.
Let Ron,
I
yeah.
hope so, but I don't
have
think.
that.
That did not include the shutters.
It
Okay.
may be a little high. It does, if you appropriate it, it doesn't mean it has to be spent. It just covers what it might cost.
Well, that-
What is the rest of the money for?
Parks.
I know, but we have no information. What are you doing?
Well, I think that's
What
what
will
we're
it
going to get
do?
together and talk about.
What?
I believe those are the things we're going to get together and talk about under the facilitation. It's
But we don't
how else-
even
how
know
else do we
how
want to
much
spend the
those
money?
cost.
Excuse me?
We don't even know what they are or what they'll cost. This sounds
I
like
think
it's.
the mayor said
precipitous.
he was going to provide some estimates.
Well, I can tell you that the bridge that Linda Wardell was talking about down in Harrods Creek Park is a $75,000 expenditure right there. If we pursue this bridge that Don has talked to us about, That's going to be more than what we're putting in here. We'll probably need some more money in Little Hunting Creek Park. Reason that it's in here is we've got 327 to allocate. We're going to need more than the amount that's being put into parks for the things we want to do in parks.
Why don't we consider, until we know what we're going to do and what it will cost, why don't we consider putting this into our reserves? And then when we have a clue what we're going to spend it on, we can actually take a vote from knowledge.
Well, this is a first reading, so presumably we're going to have a month to flesh some of that out, and then we can either vote yes or no in a month.
But
So
then we
I
would have
think
to go to, if it was substantial, we would have to go to another first reading.
That's correct. That's correct. But this is a first reading this evening. So if we're, we're not going to solve all these questions tonight. I suggest we go ahead and decide whether we're going to allow a first reading, which I think we've already had a first reading. I don't think we have to do anything else. But if it's our custom to vote on that, I suggest it's time to vote.
Well, may I make a suggestion then, Mr. Mayor? I think, the police have done an excellent job in presenting the council with information on a detailed level that supports what they're asking for, and I have no problem at all with that. The city hall number of 35,000, if we go on record and saying that is for the door and the cupola and the repairs, I have no problem with that either, even if it is just a high budget number. But I think that what Sandra's point is well taken, that if we just put that 188,000, leave it in the general account until we have something more substantive, I think I could support that easily tonight for first reading. But without anything more general than a couple of bridges, I don't think that's something we should do.
Those are fair points. I think I would suggest we go ahead and vote on whether we're going to have a first reading or not.
Well, what we could also consider doing is amending this document and doing a first reading on the amended document to comport with what Mr. Fulcher just said. In other words, amend this document to include the police equipment and the 35,000 for City Hall for those specific items. And that could be our first reading, which we could then approve next month.
I do have a question with that, Sandra. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt anybody who had a response to that.
Go ahead, Sarah.
My only question was kind of along the same lines as all that. There was a small thing. I think it's just a vernacular use, but it can't go in reserves. I do know that legally, but it can sit in the general fund. I just wanted to mention the reserve thing, that it legally can't be put in a thing for reserves. I did have a question if, looking at the categories, so, police department and public works are basically the only two categories. Would we be able to potentially create another line, since everything in that survey for government services is basically under public works? So sidewalks, pathways, lighting, city hall, all of those things. Would there be an ability to just create a line item so that the money can be put in there for, what's up, Sandra? Sorry.
Actually, the reason we can't do that
For like
is
ARPA?
because once it is like that, we have authorized its expenditure.
Okay.
And that's why we need to put it in some way that we're not authorizing an expenditure until we know, in my mind, what we're going to spend it on and how much it will cost.
I got you. I would like just to advocate for the, only because I agree with what Frank was saying for the, there's some things on here that are specifically stated. And I know Linda has all the info for the bridge piece. I know there's a timeline to where, and Ron may be able to speak to it, of where it may cost us more money waiting based on where the land is falling away into the creek, or into kind of the outlet for the meadow, which leads into the creek. But that has a specific dollar value attached to it.
But are you saying that we have not allocated any money at all for the bridge?
Correct. There's, well, there isn't, and I'm only responding to Sandra for the piece where you said specific allocations. There isn't like that money is in the 188,697. I just was trying to respond. I wasn't sure based on what you were saying, since it's not stated as bridge for Harrods Creek Park. Like she has all of that info.
Actually here,
Thank you.
If you would like to allow me to speak to that. I don't know if I can be recognized or not, since I'm not.
Sure, go ahead.
And Ron, if you are there, I know that you've got a slide available that has the actual cost estimates for the bridge project.
Yes, give me just a second.
Okay. Basically, the total cost of the bridge project would be $75,000. We've been recommended to have some contingency funds, just because sometimes you have unexpected costs. Okay. So this is the information that we've been given. So the actual bridge of almost $32,000. We've got some costs for foundations, abutments, installation, decking, which would the decking would take the end of the current concrete path across the bridge. And then there's some permitting that needs to be done, because we have to get permits to take out the culvert and also do the construction, removal of some of the, what do I want to say? You know, when you take the culvert out, you've got some excavation that needs to be done. So basically, the bridge project is about $75,000. If you add a contingency, you might want to budget for $82,000 for that project. So I don't know if that helps, but that's the information I have.
Well, we've got 327,000. I'm hearing we want to put 103,000 in for the police, another 35,000 in for the cupola and the door. And if we put 75,000 in for the plus whatever, we're over $200,000, and we're trying to decide how to spend 327, and we're going to hire a facilitator to help us with that for $1,000 to figure out how to spend $1,000. So I understand some of this goes in the next year, but is there a way we could keep some options open, and we can have this session to determine how we want to spend the money before already allocating 200,000 of the 327,000 we haven't spent?
No, I hear you. I think that what you just said makes a lot of sense. Was my understanding that some of the money for the park improvement was already in the budget. And if it is, then maybe we're not talking about the full 75,000 or 82,000. I don't know, Linda,
I
are
don't
you
think the
still here?
75,000 is covered in the current budget park maintenance.
Correct. The only thing that was in the current year budget was the engineering study that would help us identify options and best, the best options for replacing the culvert with the bridge. We did not have anything in the current year budget to actually do construction.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
If you give a first reading.
Could I just say something, Sarah?
You give a first
You're
reading.
right. It has to go to the general fund. That would go to the general fund, and that's what my intent was.
If you give a first reading to this proposed budget, this proposed amendment, you've got a month and you've got the facilitator and all that, and you have discussion when it comes up for passage or non-passage. So it seems to me that it all kind of fits.
I move that we amend in accordance with my suggestion that the 188,697 be moved to the general fund and leave it there until next meeting. Need a second, anybody?
I'll second it.
I'll second it. That's good.
So if there's discussion on that motion, I think that, John, may I be recognized to discuss that motion to amend?
Yeah, there's one thing you cannot do with ARPA money, and that is you can't save it.
I don't think we're talking about saving it. We're talking about knowing what we're going to spend it on.
And what I'm saying is by the time of the next meeting, you will know.
So,
Yeah,
so
we should.
I think it's, John, if I could be recognized. Thank you. I think it's a really good discussion and very helpful to me. And I think that it helps bring it all more clearly into focus. I do oppose the motion to amend and suggest we get back to the main motion, which is the motion for a first reading of the ordinances as presented.
Well, then I think we should vote on that.
If we're in discussion about it, I just want to throw out, my only problem is I fully support the park infrastructure was one of the top items in the survey. And I think Linda presented, and they've done a lot of research. We approved in the budget engineering study. So the 82K for the bridge, I think is as fulfilled in knowledge as the 35K is for the cupola and the door, and the 103K is for the police in terms of accuracy and desire and based on public need. That's just all I wanted to say.
So much has happened, I've kind of lost track, but if you
We
all
have a
help me.
motion and a
We made a
second.
motion to bring it to the floor. I don't think we ever made a motion for a first reading. The only other motion I remember is Frank's motion. Somebody help me out. Did we?
No, we did have a motion for a first reading, which was seconded. And I'm prepared to take a vote on that motion.
Well, except Frank's made a motion to amend, so I think we have to deal
Well,
with that motion.
that comes first then.
Yeah.
So Frank's motion to amend. Frank, how do you vote?
I'm for it, yes.
Greg?
I'm for it.
Sandra?
Yes.
Doug?
No.
Sarah?
Without the bridge in there, no.
Don Gibson?
No.
Well, Sarah, would you amend it then to include the bridge, which would be specified in there? And that's
the issue.
That's the issue, the specificity.
Well, the motion failed. We don't have a motion on the floor now other than the motion for first reading.
Frank's motion has failed. Now we have Doug's motion to adopt it or to put it out for a first reading. Frank, how do you vote on that?
No.
Greg?
Please restate what we're voting on. I'm sorry.
Doug, what's your motion to
give
it a first reading, right?
I'm
Yes,
sorry,
motion.
I passed. No.
Sandra?
No.
Don Gibson?
Yes.
Doug Farnsley?
Yes.
Sarah Odell?
Yes.
I vote yes. So we give it a first reading. Doug Farnsley, would you give it a first reading?
So the first reading is City of Prospect, Kentucky, ordinance number 614, series 2022, an ordinance amending the budget for the general fund of the City of Prospect for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021 and ending June 30, 2022.
Thank you. Now, the next thing that will happen, we'll schedule a special meeting. Greg and I will talk together about getting a facilitator. We'll schedule a special meeting to talk about all these things. And at the next regular meeting, we will bring this ordinance up for discussion, further discussion, and a vote on the ordinance. Okay? That concludes the agenda except for comments from citizens. I can't tell if there are any citizens there, still there to comment. I gathered
There
that
are
Bob
two
Jacob was
citizens.
there at one point.
We have two citizens.
Are there two citizens that want to talk?
Do you want to say anything? They don't want to talk.
Okay, or it's no talk. Then I would like to have a motion. Is Grover in the audience?
Yes.
I would like to have a motion to go into closed session in order to discuss litigation and potential litigation. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
In closed session, if there's anybody in the council room other than Grover and Chris and the council, please ask them to leave.
Mr. Mayor, give me a minute to clear the room and stop the feed.
Well,